Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Wall Street's recent success. And no, we're not talking about the usual market trends. We're talking about the companies that control the one thing that truly matters now: data. These are the big data behemoths.
You've seen the headlines, right? You watch the market climb, and you've got to wonder, what is really powering all of this? It's a fantastic question, and let me tell you, the answer is probably not what you think. Let's dive in.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll set the scene with the market rally. Then, we're going to define what big data actually is. From there, we'll introduce you to the 5 key players in this whole story. And finally, we'll tie it all together and figure out what it means for the future.
Okay, let's kick things off with the Wall Street rally. Now, on the surface, it might look like business as usual, but if you dig just a little bit deeper, you start to see something really interesting at play.
So, what's the secret sauce here? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a huge technological shift called big data. This is the real engine humming away behind the scenes, processing and crunching information that is literally shaping the future of business.
That brings us to the million-dollar question: what in the world is big data? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a modern-day gold rush. But instead of digging for gold, the most valuable thing on the planet is now information.
Let's get just a little technical for a second. At its core, big data is just that: a massive, messy collection of all kinds of information. We're talking organized data, disorganized data, and everything in between. It's a constant flood of information hitting businesses every single day.
But, just having data isn't enough. How do companies actually turn it into value? Well, it's kind of like a 3-step dance. First, they collect a ton of data from all over the place. Think AI and all those smart devices. Step 2, they use incredibly powerful tools to analyze it all, looking for patterns and predicting what's next. And finally, all those insights help them make smarter decisions. It's how they get more efficient, manage the risks, and come up with the next big thing.
So now that we get the what, let's talk about the who. It's time to meet the titans of this new data landscape, the 5 companies that have absolutely mastered the game.
And here's our lineup. Isaac Corporation, FICO, Teradata, F5, S&P Global, and Moody's. I bet you've heard of at least a few of these, right? But what you might not realize is that these 5 companies basically form the backbone of this whole big data world.
Okay, time to put these companies under the microscope. Let's take a closer look and see what exactly makes each one a data powerhouse.
Let's start with a big one, FICO. Everyone knows them for their credit scores, which are the absolute foundation of the lending industry. But they're not just sitting back. They're constantly evolving, even pulling in data from buy now, pay later services. And their software business, the subscription stuff, is growing like crazy. And the proof is in the numbers. Get this, FICO is expecting earnings to grow by almost 35% this year. That is a huge number. It just shows how incredibly valuable their data analysis is when it comes to deciding who gets a loan.
So, from the data that defines your credit, let's move to the data that powers artificial intelligence. That's where Teradata comes in. These guys are a critical part of the AI revolution, managing the mountains of data that AI needs to work. They're even moving into what's called Agentic AI, basically AI that can act on its own 24/7. Super cool stuff.
Now, their expected earnings growth is a solid 3.6%. It's not the explosive number FICO has, but don't let that fool you. This steady growth shows just how essential they are. They're like the company laying down all the plumbing for the AI boom.
Of course, with all this data flying around, you've got to keep it safe. And that brings us to our third company, F5. Their whole world is application security. They're like the high-tech traffic cops and security guards for all the data flowing between different cloud services. And they've been on a shopping spree, buying 6 companies in 5 years to stay on top.
Okay, now this is where the story gets really interesting. F5's revenue is actually growing, but their earnings are down. So what gives? Well, this is a classic case of playing the long game. They're spending a lot of money now on those acquisitions we just mentioned, betting that it's going to lead to much bigger growth down the road.
All right, we've covered credit data and secured data, so let's talk about business information itself. Next up, S&P Global. They're a giant in business info, and their strategy is super simple: buy companies to get more data and better tools. They're snapping up firms that specialize in everything from analyzing text to boosting their own AI.
And is that strategy working? Oh yeah. They are forecasting a very, very healthy 11.6% earnings growth for the year. That's all the proof you need that their investments in data are really paying off.
And last but certainly not least, we have Moody's. Much like S&P, they are a massive player in the credit rating world.
Their game plan is all about making smart acquisitions all over the globe to bring in new streams of revenue. For example, they just bought a company in Chile to get a stronger foothold in Latin America.
And would you look at that? An expected earnings growth of 11.9%. That is almost identical to S&P Global. And folks, that is not a coincidence. It's a pattern, and it tells a powerful story. The companies that truly master data are the ones winning in this economy, period.
So we've met the 5 giants. Now let's just zoom out one last time and talk about the big picture takeaway here, the unbelievable pervasive power of data.
So what's the bottom line here? Big data is not just some tech buzzword anymore. It is a fundamental force driving our economy. The companies that figure it out are the ones shaping our future. And this isn't some abstract idea. It affects your daily life, from your credit score to the AI you just talked to. This whole trend is being pushed forward by smart acquisitions, constant innovation, and building the right infrastructure.
And that leaves us with one final, really fascinating question to think about. As AI and the Internet of Things just keep getting bigger and bigger, generating unimaginable amounts of data, who's going to be the next big data behemoth to rise to the top?